Homeschooling regrets. We've all got them. And in today's video, that's what we're talking about. Our biggest homeschooling regrets. It's not just me here with you today. I've been joined by 5 of my favorite homeschool mama friends where we are all diving deep into our biggest homeschooling regrets. Today's video is vulnerable and heartfelt, and it may definitely touch a nerve or two with some of you. Some of these stories that they are about to share with you certainly brought a tear to my eye. But being able to consciously reflect on the journey as homeschooling parents is such an important part of this process. And so our wish for today's video is that some of these reflective moments in time can help you and empower you in your journey moving forward. You may want to grab yourself a cuppa for this one. Let's get into it, shall we? It's important to mention that none of these stories are shared to shame anyone or to make anyone feel less than in any way, shape or form. These stories are a part of these women's journey in homeschooling. And I know for me over the years, digging deep with other homeschooling parents has helped me so much, especially in those moments if I'm wondering if I've made the right choice to homeschool my kids. Okay, so first I'm going to hand you over to Marieka.
Hi, my name's Marieka Lake and I live on the west coast of Australia with my hubby Greg and our 4 beautiful children. I have Will who's 13, Em who's 8, Cruz is 6 and little Jackson is 4 years old. And we are into our 3rd year of homeschooling. Now, 2 of my regrets when it comes to homeschooling. My first one is that I regret signing up to do distance education the very first year that we tried homeschooling. Now, we tried homeschooling when my oldest son was in pre-primary and grade 1. We actually moved from Australia and we lived in sunny California for a year. And we were over there studying. And my husband was studying at Bible college. And we were just there for a year and we knew that we were going to come back to our hometown and that my son would probably go back into normal school. And so I wanted to make sure that he had kept up this year that we were away and that he could slot straight back into school with no worries. And I didn't want to worry about finding resources, taking resources with me to another country and all that kind of stuff. So I decided to sign up for distance education through the education department here in Western Australia. And I actually regret doing that. We didn't overly enjoy that year of school. We enjoyed our time in California immensely, but when it came to school, we just didn't enjoy it. And so it put a real dampener on the whole homeschool vibe that we had. I think it was because we were answerable to someone and every single week I had to fax off all the work that we had done that week. And there was somebody keeping on top of what we were doing. And it was totally led by somebody else. I didn't trust myself enough that I could gather the resources and implement a program for my own son. And I should have done that. I'm a teacher myself, and I just didn't realize that there was so many curriculums available out there for homeschoolers just to be able to purchase inexpensively or to even print out myself. I was just totally unaware, and I should have trusted myself to be able to implement a curriculum. It would have been much more relaxed for him, much more at his level, much more fun than being tied into this curriculum that was actually really old. The stuff that they gave us was really old and a little outdated, and having to answer to someone every single week was just a real drag. So I wish I had have trusted myself that I know my son, I know what he enjoys, and I trusted myself to put my own curriculum together and go with that and go with our own flow instead of having to report to somebody.
This one's such a common thing and it pops up all the time in online homeschooling forums where we as mothers just don't feel confident enough in our abilities, and therefore we choose to register with some kind of distance education or external school provider because we don't feel capable. When in reality, especially when our children are young, the academic component part of a school day is minuscule. It's so tiny. It's really not an onerous thing to tackle and take on. And so my wish is for every homeschooling parent that entered into the homeschooling world that they felt empowered to be able to jump into this journey and facilitate their children's learning in a way that best suits them and their children. Although I do know that going it alone, especially in the beginning, can and is often very, very scary to do. It is also immensely freeing, knowing that you are the captain of this ship.
And another regret that I have was in our first year of homeschooling, trying to do all of the things, trying to do all of the subjects right from the beginning all at once. And it was just too much. In that first year of homeschooling, you're just getting used to being at home, you being the teacher and the mother, this new environment of homeschooling versus being at school. And I tried to make sure I was doing all of the things. I was doing literacy, I was doing math, but then history, geography, trying to add in health studies and a second language. We were learning German as well. And it was just all too much. We should have had just a slower start in that first year, just really concentrating on literacy and mathematics and adding in a fun couple of other things until we really got on our feet, got used to homeschooling, being at home and this new way of doing life, and then slowly added in all the other subjects. So I definitely wish that I would have gone slower in that first year and not try and do absolutely everything all at once, all at the same time.
This is another thing that's taken me several years to learn, and it actually really, it's really such an important thing. We don't have to do every subject every single day or even every single term. Trying to cram everything in generally does nothing but bring us stress and brings our children stress. It really is perfectly acceptable to, let's take science for example, just focus on science as one of our subjects heavily for the year, but we may not so much focus on geography or history for that year. Whereas the next year that comes around, we may choose to swap those. We may have a heavy focus on history and a lesser focus on science. And that is perfectly okay. It's completely and utterly fine to make those choices. Okay, now it's time to welcome Tiffany.
Hello, my name is Tiffany and I'm so happy to be here collaborating with all these amazing homeschool mums. Thank you, a very big thank you to Kylie for organising this collaboration. Today I am going to be giving my thoughts on my homeschool regrets. So I have been homeschooling for 4 years now. This is our 4th year. I have 2 children. One is in grade 5 and the other is in grade 2. I have been homeschooling my daughter right from the very beginning, whereas my son, we started homeschooling in the year that he was in grade 2. So for me, my biggest regret would probably be that I didn't homeschool him sooner. Things were not going well right from the very beginning when we went into mainstream schooling, and it was incredibly hard couple of years, and we went through 3 different schools before we came to the conclusion that it was just not going to work. And the reason for that, I think, is because we had homeschooling in our minds, but I had put up some walls around that, and probably not for the reasons that most have those hesitations around homeschooling. It was actually because I really felt that I wasn't educated enough around homeschooling. I didn't know anyone that homeschooled. I really had no idea what homeschooling was. And I was under the impression that you needed to have finished high school in order to be able to homeschool your children, because I'd heard it somewhere. And I think that, in some places that does apply, but not in Australia. And because I had left school at the age of 15 to pursue an apprenticeship in hairdressing. So I went on to further studies in that area. So I didn't get a grade 12 certificate. So in my head, I thought that, that's going to be too hard. I'm going to, I'd have to go back and do that certificate, which I don't think would have been that big of a deal anyway. It certainly would have been worth it if I had to anyway. But the fact that we didn't do it sooner would probably be my biggest regret. I have since moved on from that and forgiven myself and discussed those things with our son as well. But it was a very difficult time for us. And I think that, you know, we live and we learn, and we certainly wouldn't have made some of the decisions that we have, or perhaps even appreciated homeschooling as much as we really, really, truly do now today, because we know how hard it would have been to go another way. We know we have those memories, and unfortunately, you know, we can't take those away. We can only spin it in a positive by learning from that and remembering that you know, we did go through that hard time, and we worked together and we came to a solution, and we couldn't be happier today, and that's what's most important. And we were able to avoid that situation with our daughter as well. So that's probably my regret that I'm sharing with you today. And I guess the point is, when it comes to talking about regrets, I think we do need to be a little bit careful, because we can't change what's in the past. We can only learn from it. And I think that's what the point of this video is today, with this collaboration with Kylie, is just the fact that sharing our regrets or our hesitations or anything around homeschooling, our, you know, sometimes the negative sides around homeschooling or things like that, sharing that can really, really help everybody in the long run. So that is my regret, and thank you so much for having me, Kylie. I've really appreciated being a part of this collaboration, and you can find me over at Hinterlife Homeschool on YouTube, and I'm also on Instagram as well if you'd like to connect.
Choosing to homeschool or putting off the decision to homeschool and not making that decision earlier is, again, a really, really common thing that pops up in homeschooling groups. And I know, as new homeschooling parents, once you make that decision and you find the world of homeschooling, you're like, why did I take so long to do this? Why did I put our family through what I put them through? I think in this moment, it's really, really important to show yourself so much love and kindness. What is it that you would say to another mother who had made similar decisions to you? During those moments of indecision, you were doing the best that you knew how to do. And so it is so important to just give yourself some grace. And you found homeschooling, you're here, and now it's time to move forward with your decision. Your child knows that the decisions you made had their best interests at heart, and you were genuinely trying to seek out the best answer for them. And as Tiffany mentioned, I think it's a really valuable exercise to have a really honest and open conversation with your children. Explain to them your thoughts and your feelings through that process, and maybe why you didn't jump into homeschooling sooner than what you actually did. And when it comes down to it, forgive yourself in those moments. It's time to move forward with this amazing new journey of home education. So for me, my biggest regret for homeschooling crosses over into one of my biggest regrets just as a parent. And that is simply not trusting myself to make good decisions for my children. When I first removed my son from school, my daughter, my second child, was just getting ready to head off to kindergarten. So as you can imagine, there was some angst there. I'd removed my son from school, but I was about to send my daughter to kindergarten. What do I do? She was going to our local 4-year-old kinder program. It's a small community kindergarten. My son flourished in this space, and he had an amazing, wonderful time with them there. And so there was part of me that was like, I didn't want my daughter to miss out on that experience. It was so good for my eldest. Surely it will be just as good for my middle child. I did mention these concerns that I had with some close family members, and they all encouraged me to, yes, go ahead and send her along to kindy. It'll be a great and valuable experience for her. So that is what I did. Well, let me tell you, she was the classic child that had to be peeled off me, screaming and crying for weeks, not days, weeks on end. That was one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life, doing that. And doing that because it was the right thing to do. Doing it because the experience would be good for her. Doing it because I allowed the influence and the thoughts of well-meaning extended family members to get inside my head and not trust my own gut and my own feelings and my own child, who was showing me every single day that this experience was awful for her. I was led to believe, or I was told, that if I didn't let her finish out the year at kindergarten, I would be robbing her of this very important and amazing experience that could be an experience of growth. And so I allowed those thoughts to eat away at me, and I pushed down my own feelings of motherhood guilt and continued to take her there every single day. And while she did have some nice moments in that environment, 10 years later, today, 10 years later, she still talks about kindergarten has been a horrible, horrible experience for her. So that experience, it broke a little piece of my heart, to be truly honest. I feel like I cheated my child in a way because I didn't honor and value and listen to her in those moments. It was more important to me to value people outside of me who had more experience in motherhood rather than listen to my child. I failed my child, and in that moment I failed at motherhood. It's not how it's supposed to be. No child should ever have to be pulled off you screaming into the arms of a stranger. And I do not care what any professional person says, this is not the way of the mother-child bond. It is not normal. It goes against every evolutionary idea there is out there. And society has told us that it is normal and they will adjust. And they do adjust because they have no choice. They have to adjust. They are given no choice and no say in the matter. But it is not normal in any way, shape or form. And I long for the day when our system wakes up to the nonsense that we are putting our babies through, even though I fear it's never actually going to come. So once I recovered from that and she did finish off her year, I gained a little bit more confidence, and that is when I made the decision that she would never ever set foot inside an institutionalized setting during her childhood ever again. I admitted to myself that in that moment I had failed simply because I wasn't secure enough in myself, in my decision making, in myself as a parent, and in listening to my child. But it was in that moment that I changed as a parent. Never ever again would I allow the opinion of others to control me. No matter how kind, caring, or thoughtful those opinions may be, they are someone else's opinion. They are not my opinion, and they do not pertain to myself and the way I parent my child. And the opinions of others do not rule over me and the decisions that I make around parenting my children. That doesn't mean I don't listen to people. It doesn't mean I don't take into account valuable advice, because I absolutely definitely do. However, I'm confident in being able to take people's opinions, take people's advice, use what I feel resonates for me, and leave the rest behind. Learning to trust myself has been the biggest, most pivotal moment in my life as a parent. Okay, let's hear Joelle's story and her biggest homeschooling regrets.
Hey Kylie, thank you so much for organising this collab. I'm so excited to be doing this with you and the other beautiful homeschool mamas. It's awesome being part of this YouTube community. And yep, I'm going to share my 2 biggest regrets in our homeschool journey so far. So the first one would be trying to justify to everyone around me who didn't believe in homeschooling why we were homeschooling our children. Seriously, I spent so much emotional energy trying to make everybody else okay with our decision to homeschool. And at the end of the day, some people just are never going to get it, and that's okay. I'm not living to please them. What it comes down to is, am I doing what I believe God called me to do? Is my husband and I in agreement? Yes, we are. And are we doing what we think is best for our kids? Yes, we are. Then nothing else matters. The opinions of others don't matter. But unfortunately, it took me a really, really long time to wrap my head around that. And I seriously just wasted so much effort just trying to please other people. Effort I could have been pouring into my kids and their learning and their education at home. So if I could rewind, 6 years ago when I decided to start this journey, I would do things a lot differently, and I just would be gracious, because not everyone does approve of our decision to homeschool, and not everyone's going to approve of your decision to homeschool either. But that's okay. As long as you know in your heart you're doing the right thing, then just go for it.
Oh yes, the good old make sure that the world knows that what I'm doing here is absolutely the best thing, and you all need to understand and you all need to agree with me. I'm not sure there's a homeschooler on the planet who hasn't been through this one. I think this one's really very common as a regret, as in wasting so much time and energy, as Joelle said, on championing our cause and making sure that every person around us agreed with us and understood and got what we were doing. And it can be especially challenging when we have people near us that don't agree, that feel that we are doing the wrong thing by our kids, and then that can often make us even more stressed and even more highly emotive, having to prove that yes, we know what we're doing and we've got it under control, and you need to agree with me. I've seen it time and time again. I'd like to encourage you in these moments to find folks and surround yourself with people who do see the value in what you're doing. I understand that you can't just remove those people who don't agree with you from your life, but if you can surround yourself with people who do, people who will lift you up, people who will support your decision making, you'll feel so much more refreshed and comfortable with your choices. And then you can get to a place of understanding that not everyone needs to agree with you, and that you do not need to change every single person's mind on this matter. We are all on our own life journey. Some of us will choose to homeschool. Some of us will believe that it's certainly the wrong choice for children. And that is completely okay. We don't necessarily need to head down the road of changing every single person's mind about this. Because let me fill you in on a little secret. The proof is in the pudding. And okay, the pudding can take a few years before it's ready to be devoured. But the proof here really is in the pudding. When those around you see your children flourishing and what amazing human beings they are growing into, slowly, those walls of anti-homeschooling will come down. I'm almost certain of it.
And my second biggest regret would be, again, it's got really nothing to do with their actual learning, but more to do with my own feelings towards their learning. And that is that I have tried way too hard to make my homeschool like other people's homeschool. So, I love watching YouTube. I love watching YouTube, especially for inspiration and homeschool ideas. But the downside to that is sometimes you can look at that and go, oh, am I doing enough? Or my homeschool doesn't seem to be as good as her homeschool, or are my kids behind? Or, and you start comparing yourself and you start comparing your children, and you're just looking every single way except where you should be looking. And that's at your own children and your own journey. And so I really made that mistake for a really long time. And I'm finally at a place now where I'm totally at peace with what we're doing. We are doing what is best for our family, the way that suits our family. And I love to see what other people are doing. And I do get inspiration from, hearing about their day or seeing what curriculum they're using. And it's great to get different ideas and all of that. But I'm never going to let that, make me feel like I'm somehow underperforming, because I'm not. I'm doing what's best for my kids. Anyway, I hope that blesses you. Thank you so much again, Kylie.
Oh, I love this, Joelle. Thank you so much for bringing this one up. That viewing social media, because let's face it, it's such a part of our world now. What we see on social media is definitely just a highlight reel. 90% of the images on Instagram, for example, are staged images. They are not just snap a photo of what's happening here today. But rather than using social media and YouTube to bring us down and make us feel less than, it can and should be a place of inspiration. I am a better parent and a better homeschooling mum because of social media. I see so many amazing things shared on Instagram and YouTube, and I think, oh, I can implement that in our homeschool. Some work, some don't, but that's okay. There is so much information and so much helpful advice out there in the world of YouTube and homeschooling YouTube channels. And of course, the bulk of them are highly edited. They are only showing you snippets of their day. And I think we need to get to a place of being realistic about that. Rather than trying to fight against it, use social media simply as a place of inspiration. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. And for some of those mums on Instagram especially, one of their strengths is putting together the most exquisite, stunningly beautiful photographs to share on their feed. That's their strength. Your strength may be baking with your children every day, or gardening with your children, or ensuring that you're reading with them every single night before they close their eyes. Their strength is creating beautiful, stunning photographs. It doesn't mean that they have this perfect homeschooling environment. So my wish is, for those of you that do use social media and hop on and use YouTube, that it is an inspiration to you. Don't allow it to make you feel less than, because as I said, we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. Never allow what others put out in the world to make you feel as though you are not good enough. Because at the end of the day, all that counts is the relationship between you and your child. That's it. All those superfluous activities really make zero difference. It all comes down to the relationship and the love and the bond that you have with your children. Okay, let's hear from the lovely Dani and some of her regrets for homeschooling.
Hi friends, my name is Dani. My channel name is One Single Joy, and I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Kylie, for inviting me to be on your video. Again, this is so much fun. I had a ball making the last video with you and with all of our Aussie homeschool mama friends, and I'm so glad that we get to do this again. All right, I'm going to get stuck into what some of my homeschool regrets are. I could probably rattle off a whole big list, but I'm going to stick to just a few today. Some of the biggest ones, some of the things that I think about often and think, oh man, I wish I didn't do that, or I wish I did that. I think the great thing about homeschool life is we are constantly growing, evolving, and learning more and more and more with our kids. So even though we have regrets, don't feel bad, mama. I've got to tell myself the same thing. Let's not feel too bad. This is a journey that we're on, and we're going to learn from our mistakes, and our kids are seeing us learn from our mistakes, and that is a life lesson in itself. Okay, so my first regret with homeschooling is not following the call earlier. So I have talked on my channel about how I came to the decision to homeschool. It's a whole thing. But I can look back in my life now and I can see that there was probably a door open for me to homeschool my daughter before she was even sent off to school. I really wish that I had looked more into homeschooling and considered it and not had walls up in my mind to homeschooling and prejudices and assumptions and all those things. I wish that I had looked into it and considered it and prayed about it from the beginning. I so regret not homeschooling my daughter from the beginning and not opening my eyes and my heart to it back then. I think life would have been so different, obviously, and although I can't feel too bad about where we are at now because it's great, life is so good, God is good to us, but I can't help but think, man, I wish I had just, bitten the bullet back then and just at least opened my eyes and ears to the idea of homeschooling. Okay, my next regret, when we did actually start homeschooling, just for those who don't know me, I took my daughter out of school at the end of year 3. She completed year 3 and we started year 4 off in homeschooling. So another one of my big regrets was expecting too much independent work from her. My daughter is quite capable, she's intelligent, she's mature for her age, and I don't know why, I just thought that she could do all these things on her own. She couldn't. She came home to homeschool for a reason. She needed her mama. She wanted her mama. And it took me, way too many months to figure that out. And I had turned her off some certain learning styles or some certain textbooks and things like that because I expected her to do it independently. Looking back now, I wouldn't even ask her to do that independently now. Like, I was crazy to think that. I was just so off the mark with that. And I regret that because it really set a bad tone to the start start of our homeschool, and it could have been much more lovely and much more pleasant. So yeah, I really, really, really regret that. Even now, I don't push my daughter to do independent work. I will wait for her to ask to do it independently. And that's happening, which is great. That means she's ready for that. Now I have trouble letting go. I'm like, oh, don't you want to do that with me? Don't you want to do this together? But no, she's preteen and in high school now. So she's happy to do it independently. But yeah, I really regret sort of expecting her to just do a lot of things independently back in the beginning.
Yeah, expecting our kids to be independent from a really young age. I think this is an easy one to fall into. But yes, expecting kids to be able to just open their books and know what to do and start their work can be a bit of a challenge. Because we need to think back to our time in school and what that was like. And think about how much scaffolding takes place inside a classroom and for how many years that scaffolding actually takes place. So generally a lesson would go something like this. Okay students, get out your pencil, eraser, ruler, open your books, open your workbook to page 25. In your exercise book, in the top corner, we're going to put today's date. I've written it here on the board for you. We're going to draw a margin down the left-hand side. Do they still do that? Anyway, do they still draw margins in exercise books? I'm not sure. Now we're going to put the title across the top of the page. I've written the title on the board for you, so let's all copy that down, put it in our book. This happens every lesson, every day, every week, every month, every year for the bulk of primary school. That scaffolding helps to teach children how to, at some point, the hope is that one day they'll just open their book and do that. And of course, some children grasp that really quickly and really easily, and others never truly grasp it at all. So this part of the learning process is actually taught. For most kids, it doesn't come naturally. The taught process and learned over years and years of scaffolding.
Okay, the third regret that I have is not having much or enough grace in the beginning, in that first year of homeschooling. It was a massive life change for us. We went from being in the rat race, guys, in the rat race, and then homeschooling. And although there were a lot of benefits and a lot of wonderful things, not having to rush around in the morning, being able to sleep in a little bit, not having to iron uniforms and get lunch boxes ready and all that kind of stuff. There were advantages and benefits. Of course, we both enjoyed it, but it was a big life change and we were getting used to being with each other all the time. We were getting to know each other now. We were getting to know each other. And there was some friction and there was some growing pains. There were definitely some growing pains. And I really regret not having the foresight or not being able to step away from it and look at it the way that I look at it now. I mean, obviously I've learned from it. I've learned the lesson now, but I wish I didn't have to learn the lesson. I wish I already knew. And it does make sense. Like, it makes total, complete, honest sense for me now. So yeah, I really wish I had more grace on my daughter in that first year, on myself, on our everything, on our homeschool, on our new life. I think my expectations were just a little bit too high, and we both suffered for that. Now, the way that I'm talking, it might come across as if we had this horrible first year and it was just monstrous. No, it wasn't. It was amazing. Homeschooling is amazing. But looking back, the first year was the hardest. I think the first year is always the hardest for everyone in homeschooling. And I think knowing that is a big advantage, and giving yourself and your children grace. I wish that I had done that. I think that the first year we might have gotten over those big hurdles a lot faster and a lot easier if we had just known that, yep, this is fine. We were expecting these hurdles. It's okay. This is not going to be like this forever. I love homeschooling. And yes, there are regrets, but I do not regret homeschooling in the slightest. It has been one of the best decisions I have ever made. And I just praise my God for calling me to homeschool my daughter. It's a great life. There are sacrifices made. Yes. There are regrets. Yes. Are there hard times? Of course. But that's life. There are hard times in everything. All in all, I love the homeschool life and I love sharing about it here on YouTube as well. Thanks again so much for having me, Kylie. This has been so much fun. I really, 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 really look forward to seeing all the other mamas' regrets and what they share as well. We're all here to grow and learn from each other and support and encourage each other. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care and God bless. Ciao.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. If you are bringing children home from school, expect friction. Anticipate some friction. I think if you can anticipate that friction, as Dani said, it probably won't be so bad because you're expecting it to happen. Their world, even though they may be glad to not be in the school environment anymore, their world and your world has been flipped upside down. So it's now time to settle into new routines, get to know each other again, basically. And it's going to take a mammoth effort and plenty of time for everyone to get used to this new way of life. Okay, it's time to hear from the lovely Des. She has such a little surprise for you all in this one because Des has just recently had a new little bundle of joy. Oh, my mama heart. Okay, let's hear from you, Des.
Hey everyone, how you doing? My name is Desrae and I'm a homeschooling mum. We've got 4 boys. We've just had a newborn. So this little guy here, sweet little Jace, he is 4 months old. We've then got a 2.5-year-old and we've also got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. So today we're going to be talking about our biggest homeschool regrets. I've been thinking about this, and initially I thought one of my biggest regrets was that I believed that I couldn't teach the kids because I wasn't smart enough, and that was what I was going to talk about. But then I realized that there was a bigger regret that I have, and one that I actually didn't notice or realize was a problem until I saw the kind of results and effects it had upon the children as time went on. And even then I couldn't see it, but my husband pointed it out, and eventually it really came to light for me that this was quite an issue which stemmed from mistakes I had made in the homeschool journey in the beginning. So for me, one of my biggest homeschooling regrets would have to be not keeping the balance between learn by play and also like disciplined learning. So when I say that, I did a very play-based curriculum and a late education curriculum, which was Waldorf homeschooling, and I absolutely loved it. But I think my personality and who I am just didn't go well with that sort of teaching. And because I'm spontaneous and I like teaching things in a fun way and arty and things like that, that side of the Waldorf really was brilliant for me, and I loved teaching it. But then the discipline of having to bake bread every week and instilling all the other things into the children, like strengthening their will and all that kind of thing, I just didn't stick to it. And so I did a lot of the fun stuff, but the other stuff sort of went by the wayside. And in turn, we have, our children really lack the kind of the go-get-em in themselves, and also the work hard and try your best and all of that kind of thing, because I just loved teaching by fun. And if things weren't fun, then I sort of let it slide, or if things weren't fun, I didn't push them hard enough. So if I were to go back, I would still have loved to do that curriculum, but add in lots of discipline and kind of table work and different things like that as well. On reflection, we have changed to sunlight homeschooling, and that actually sits way better with my personality and also with the structure, because it's open and go, because everything is written down on what I need to do, and that really works well with me because I can just open it and do what it says there. And it is there is a lot of discipline involved in it too for the children, and that is powerful. So yes, for me, I think if I could go back, I would definitely balance out the learn by play with disciplined learning and some workbook time and table time and that kind of thing, because I believe there is a place for all of it. And I think I was just so jaded because Jordan went to school for 3 years and he cried every single day, and I just thought I really want to get away from that kind of model, because I felt like it didn't work for him, but in turn I went the complete opposite way and maybe too much on the other side, and did all things by fun and learn by play, and everything had to be fun, and that just didn't teach him a resilience in his heart about, well, actually sometimes things are just hard work and not everything's going to be fun, but sometimes when you work hard and you work hard for something, it can be really rewarding. So yes, I would go back and change that. Thank you for listening. I hope this has helped in some way. I am kind of in a newborn haze, and sort of my mind is not working that well at the moment, so I hope this made sense. And yeah, would love to hear your thoughts.
Love Des's reflection. This one got me in the heart. This so heartfelt, so vulnerable. So thankful for you sharing that story, Des. Really appreciate you doing that for all of us. And as she said, we all want our children to be happy and free and enjoying their childhood. There is no parent that doesn't want that for their child. But it is absolutely possible to have some structure and some required focused learning time and still have an amazing childhood. These things are not mutually exclusive. Instilling a good work ethic within our children is an attribute they will have with them for life. And learning to persevere at things that are challenging yet beneficial will always serve them well. Discipline is not something that should be looked upon negatively. And Des's reflection spoke to every ounce of my being. Oh, it got me right in the heart. And that juicy, gorgeous little baby of hers, oh my goodness, so delightful. But every single thing that Des has shared resonates so deeply with me. Okay, now we're going to hear from Jo.
Hey everyone, my name's Jo and I'm from Aussie Homeschool Adventures. My probably biggest regret would have been starting my youngest daughter a little bit too soon in formal education. She's 2 years younger than my oldest daughter, so we started her when she was 5, turning 6 into kindergarten here in Queensland. So I then started my 2-year younger daughter that year as well in pre-K play-based sort of activity sheets and learning. She was interested, just little bits here and there, but I think I probably should have delayed her 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. Just held her back that little bit more. Her birthday is in May, whereas my oldest daughter's birthday is in August. So those few months can make a big difference to them developmentally and their readiness for school and things like that. So that's probably one of my biggest regrets. We're still kind of adjusting to it now. She's now just turned 8, technically going into grade 3 this year, but we're still only working at about a grade 2 level, which is fun. I have no issues with where she's at with her schoolwork or even developmentally. I think she's hitting all her milestones as such. I don't know, I'm not racing, we're not pushing, we're not competing against anybody, so I don't really care. Who is she behind? There's no one in front of her apart from her sister, and that doesn't count because they're older than each other. And she's the younger one, so it doesn't really count. The other regret is probably even starting my oldest daughter with slightly more formal stuff at that 5 mark. I honestly think I should have done more play-based learning with them when they were a bit younger, less bookwork, being less in a rush to start school with them, but that was what you did. Everyone started school at 5, 5.5, turning 6. So yeah, that's probably my biggest regrets, is starting bookwork, formal education a bit too soon with my girls. Hopefully that helps somebody out there with their homeschooling journey. That's what I'm all about, is just helping and encouraging and sharing things that have worked for me or haven't worked for me.
Absolutely, academics. I think most of us know this one, but often we can fall into that. As Jo said, kids start school today at somewhere between 4.5 and 5. And so therefore that is what we do. We need to get started. But this needs to be child dependent. The child will let us know. If we're in tune with our kids, they will give us cues, because there are some 5-year-olds that are so keen and eager to get in and get those workbooks opened and chew through them and learn everything that they can, where other children are happy and content playing in the sand for hours on end at a time. Formal learning really can wait. This has been such a valuable exercise. I'm so thankful again to all the beautiful ladies who shared their stories so vulnerably, so honestly, so from their heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Reflection done consciously, I think, is a really important process for all of us. It can offer us so much hindsight and so much peace and growth in our journey as mothers and parent educators. And our aim in sharing this is to empower you on your journey as you move forward. We have really enjoyed coming together and doing these for you all. If you have any other questions that you think could work well in this type of format where we all come together and share our own answers to these questions, let us know. Either down below in my comments or contact any one of us through a private message in some way and let us know. I'm sure we'd be happy to come up with something to share with you all, and we love doing it. I'm actually curious about something else just while I've got you here. Have you subscribed, or are you having trouble subscribing to the channel? If you are, and especially if you're on mobile phone, did you know that you just need to download the YouTube app? Download the app. You may need to register if you don't have an account, but that's pretty easy. So register, sign in, and then you'll quickly and easily be able to subscribe, like, and leave comments on the video. For all of you who are still here at the end, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for staying with us right to the end. Thanks again for being here. Until next time, bye for now.